The stars had never seemed so distant as they did on the day humanity learned it was alone. Captain Olivia Reeves stood at the observation deck of the Unity station, watching the shimmer of distant galaxies through reinforced glass that had taken 20 years to perfect. She was 38 years old, with silver streaks in her dark hair that she had earned through 15 years of diplomatic service. Her hands were steady as she gripped the railing, but her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Behind her, the council chamber doors hissed open. Ambassador Richard Holbrook emerged first, his face carved from granite, every line speaking of defeat. He was followed by Dr. Samantha Torres, the leading xenobiologist who had dedicated her life to understanding alien cultures. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her cheeks without shame. The rest of the human delegation followed in silence, 23 people who had carried the hopes of 8 billion souls into that chamber. Olivia knew before anyone spoke. The weight of failure hung in the recycled air like smoke. "They voted us out," Richard said quietly. His voice was hoarse, as though the words had scraped his throat raw. "Unanimous decision. Humanity is banished from galactic space. We have 6 months to recall every ship, every station, every citizen beyond the Sol system. After that, any human vessel found in Council space will be destroyed without warning." The observation deck fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Olivia turned back to the window, watching a transport ship glide past, its hull painted with the flags of Earth's United Nations. Somewhere on that ship were families, children who had been born in space and had never touched soil. They would all have to go home now, back to a planet that many had never seen. What was the final charge? Olivia asked, though she already knew. They all knew. Samantha wiped her eyes and stepped forward. "The Thornwood intervention. We saved them, Olivia. The Thornwood people were dying from a plague that was consuming their world. We gave them the cure, we taught them how to purify their water, how to grow crops in contaminated soil. We saved an entire civilization." Her voice cracked. "And the council calls it contamination. They say we violated the natural order. They say we played God." "We played human," Richard corrected bitterly. "We saw suffering and we ended it. That is apparently our greatest crime." The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 12,000 years. 7 elder races had formed it in the aftermath of the Great Silence, when 100 civilizations had destroyed themselves in wars that scarred entire star systems. The Council had created laws designed to prevent such destruction from ever happening again. One law stood above all others, carved into crystalline tablets in 100 dead languages: never interfere with the natural development of a species. Let each civilization rise or fall by its own merit. Let evolution choose who survives. Humanity had broken that law. Not once, but 4 times in the 30 years since first contact. The Thornwood intervention was simply the last straw. Olivia remembered the hearing. She had been there, sitting in the gallery as the council elders pronounced judgment. The VRWN matriarch had spoken with a voice like grinding stone, her massive form coiled on a platform of heated rock. The Kellis ambassador had shimmered with colors that translated to words of condemnation. The ancient primarch of the Stellan Collective, a being so old that it remembered the formation of galaxies, had simply projected an image of disappointment so profound that several humans in the gallery had wept. "You are too dangerous," the VRWN matriarch had declared. "You feel too much. You act before you think. You see a problem and you must solve it, consequences be damned. You are children playing with the fundamental forces of civilization. We have voted. We have decided. Humanity will be quarantined to your home system. You will not be allowed to spread your chaos further." Now, standing in the observation deck, Olivia felt that judgment settle over her like a shroud. 6 months. 6 months to dismantle everything humanity had built among the stars. The mining colonies on Proxima Centauri b. The research station studying the beautiful nebulae of the Horsehead region. The diplomatic outpost on Kepler where human and alien children had played together for the first time in history. All of it, gone. What do we tell them? Someone asked from the back of the group. It was Lieutenant James Park, barely 25, fresh from the academy with stars in his eyes that were rapidly dimming. What do we tell the people back home? That we failed? That we're not good enough to sit at the big table? Richard turned to face the group, and Olivia saw something in his expression that surprised her. It was not defeat. It was anger, burning cold and steady like a pilot light waiting for fuel. We tell them the truth, Richard said. We tell them that we saved the Thornwood civilization. We tell them that we chose compassion over law, and that the universe judged us for it. We tell them that we have 6 months to come home. He paused, his jaw tight. And then we tell them that this is not the end. This is merely a pause. Humanity has always thrived when standing alone. Perhaps it is time we remembered that. Olivia watched emotions flicker across the faces around her. Shock gave way to grief, and grief gave way to something harder, something forged in the fires of injustice. She thought of the Thornwood people, alive and thriving now, their children growing up in a world cleansed of poison. She thought of the council elders, so ancient and so certain in their wisdom. She thought of the human spirit, which had climbed from caves to stars in the span of a few thousand years. 6 months, she said quietly. We have 6 months to prepare. The council thinks they are protecting the universe from us. They think we will simply accept this judgment and fade into obscurity. She looked at each face in turn, seeing her own determination reflected back. They do not know us very well, do they? A ghost of a smile touched Richard's lips. No, Captain Reeves. They do not. Outside the window, Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble suspended in an ocean of black. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people were going about their lives, unaware that the universe had just turned its back on them. Soon they would know. Soon they would learn that humanity stood alone. And then, Olivia thought, the universe would learn what humans could do when pushed into a corner. History had taught that lesson before. Apparently, it needed to be taught again. 5 years had passed since the Great Recall, and Earth had become a fortress of innovation wrapped in silence. Colonel Daniel Cross stood in the command center of the Prometheus facility, buried 3 miles beneath the Arizona desert, watching holographic displays dance with data that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. He was 42 now, lean and weathered, with scars on his hands from working directly with experimental technology that sometimes exploded. The Council had wanted humanity to stay home and stagnate. Instead, they had lit a fire that burned hotter with each passing day. Show me the latest results from the fold drive tests, Daniel commanded, and the air shimmered with new projections. Numbers scrolled past faster than human eyes could track, but Daniel had learned to read the patterns. His heart quickened. Those energy signatures. Tell me those are real. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped forward from the shadows of the lab, her white coat stained with coolant fluid and her eyes bright with sleepless excitement. She was 30, brilliant, and utterly obsessed with breaking the laws of physics that the Council claimed were unbreakable. Real and verified across 47 test runs. We are achieving stable fold transitions without using any Council-approved technology. No crystalline matrices, no harmonic resonators, nothing they gave us. This is pure human engineering. Daniel felt a smile tug at his lips. The fold drive was the holy grail, the technology that would let human ships move between stars without crawling through Council-monitored jump gates. For 5 years, teams around the world had worked in absolute secrecy, chasing theories that the elder races had dismissed as impossible. Humans were too young, too primitive, too limited by their short lifespans to understand the true nature of space and time. They had been wrong. Time to operational prototype? Daniel asked. 3 months, Yuki replied. Maybe 2 if we push. But Daniel, there is something else. Something we found by accident. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a strange pattern of energy waves. When we fold space, we create a ripple. A signature. The Council sensors are designed to detect their own technology. This signature is completely different. As far as their instruments are concerned, our ships will be invisible. The implications hit Daniel like a physical blow. Not just freedom to travel, but the ability to move unseen through a universe that had locked its doors. He thought of the Thornwood system, now monitored by Council peacekeepers to ensure no human ships returned. He thought of the dozens of other civilizations out there, some thriving, some dying, all subject to the Council's cold doctrine of non-interference. How many people know about this? Daniel asked carefully. Just the core team. 18 researchers. We have kept it compartmentalized as you ordered. Yuki paused, her expression troubled. Daniel, if we use this, if we go out there again, the Council will see it as an act of war. They banished us for saving lives, Daniel said flatly. What we do now is no longer their concern. Humanity tried to play by their rules. We extended our hand in friendship and they slapped it away. Now we write our own rules. A door hissed open behind them, and Director Helen Okoye entered, flanked by 2 security officers. She was 65, a veteran of the old United Nations Space Command, and the woman who had coordinated humanity's secret resistance from the shadows. Her presence commanded instant respect, though she stood barely 5 feet tall. The Council is moving, Helen announced without preamble. Our deep space monitoring arrays just detected a massive fleet entering the outer edges of the Sol system. 300 ships, including a VRWN dreadnought and 2 Stellan world breakers. They are not bothering with stealth. Daniel's blood ran cold. An invasion? An inspection, Helen corrected. They claim they have received reports of unauthorized technology development. They are demanding access to all our facilities, all our research data, all our manufacturing centers. They want to ensure we are not building weapons or developing prohibited technologies. Her smile was thin and sharp. They are afraid of us. Yuki turned pale. If they find the Prometheus facility, if they see the fold drive research, they will glass this entire planet. The precedent is clear. The Corvan civilization developed unauthorized jump technology 200 years ago. The Council erased them from existence. 3 billion lives, gone in a single day. Daniel walked to the central console and pulled up a star map. Red dots marked every Council sensor station, every patrol route, every choke point they controlled. Blue dots showed human colonies abandoned 5 years ago, now supposedly empty and monitored. Green dots indicated civilizations under Council protection, forbidden to contact. The map was a web of control spanning 200 light years. How long do we have before the inspection fleet arrives? Daniel asked. 72 hours at their current speed, Helen replied. They are not rushing. They want us to sweat, to panic, to make mistakes. Then we give them a show, Daniel said slowly, an idea forming. We open our doors. We show them factories producing Council-approved vessels. We show them research into agriculture, medicine, art. We play the role of obedient children who learned their lesson. He turned to face Helen and Yuki. And while they are searching through our public facilities, we accelerate the Prometheus project. 2 months becomes 2 weeks. We build the prototype, we test it, and we prepare for the moment when we stop asking permission. Yuki shook her head in disbelief. You want to build a faster-than-light ship under the noses of a Council inspection fleet? That is insane. That is human, Daniel corrected, echoing words spoken 5 years ago by an ambassador who had refused to accept defeat. The Council thinks they know us. They think we are emotional, reckless, short-sighted. They think our greatest weakness is that we care too much about others. Let them keep thinking that while we prove them wrong about everything else. Over the next 2 days, Earth became a stage. Council inspectors in environmental suits walked through gleaming facilities where humans had assembled nothing more dangerous than medical equipment and atmospheric processors. They scanned databases filled with research into poetry, music theory, and xenobotany. They interviewed scientists who spoke earnestly about their hopes for eventual reconciliation with the Council. The inspectors found exactly what they expected to find: a species humbled, diminished, focused on surviving within their cage. They never saw the network of underground facilities connected by tunnels so deep that no scanner could penetrate. They never detected the quantum-encrypted communications linking research teams across 6 continents. They never suspected that the meek scientist explaining crop rotation techniques had spent the previous night calculating energy curves for weapon systems that could shatter moons. In the Prometheus facility, Yuki and her team worked 30-hour shifts, fueled by stimulants and desperation. The fold drive took shape in a cavernous assembly bay, a beautiful nightmare of human engineering that violated every principle the Council held sacred. It was not elegant. It was not ancient. It was raw and powerful and utterly unprecedented. On the 7th day of the inspection, as Council ships still prowled Earth's orbit, the fold drive activated for the first time in a real vessel. The test ship, named Defiance by unanimous vote, folded space and appeared on the far side of the moon in exactly 3 seconds. It returned just as quickly, its crew of 4 volunteers shaking with adrenaline and triumph. Daniel watched the telemetry with Helen at his side. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." "This is only the beginning," Helen replied. "The Council will learn eventually. When they do, they will come with fire." "Let them come," Daniel said, his voice hardening. "For 5 years we have been preparing for this moment. We have built ships they cannot track. We have trained soldiers in tactics they cannot predict. We have studied every Council species, learned their weaknesses, mapped their territory." He looked at Helen directly. "You asked me once what the endgame was. Here it is. We are going back to the stars. Not as supplicants begging for scraps. Not as children asking permission. We are going back as equals, and we will remind the universe that humanity bows to no one." The Council inspection fleet departed Earth on a cold morning in March, their massive ships casting shadows across entire continents as they climbed back toward the stars. Director Helen Okoye watched them go from the observation deck of Prometheus Command, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. She had not slept in 3 days, surviving on coffee and the fierce determination that had carried her through 2 wars and a diplomatic catastrophe. Beside her, Colonel Daniel Cross stood equally exhausted, his eyes tracking the departing vessels until they vanished into the black. "They suspected nothing," Daniel said quietly. "The lead inspector actually complimented our agricultural research before leaving. Said humanity was finally learning wisdom." Helen allowed herself a small, dangerous smile. "Wisdom. They mistake our patience for submission. It is a fatal error, but one I am grateful for." She turned from the window and pulled up a holographic display. "How many ships do we have ready?" 47 fold-capable vessels as of this morning," Daniel replied. "The shipyards in lunar orbit are producing 3 more each week. By the end of the month, we will have a fleet of 70. He paused, his expression growing serious. "Helen, we need to talk about what comes next. We have the capability to travel unseen. We could explore, establish colonies in distant systems the Council has never reached, build our civilization beyond their grasp. We could disappear into the galaxy and never look back." "But that is not what you want to do," Helen said, reading him easily. Daniel shook his head. "The Thornwood people are still alive because we intervened. There are dozens of other civilizations out there right now, suffering under the Council's doctrine of non-interference. Species dying from diseases we could cure in weeks. Wars we could stop with simple mediation. Knowledge we could share that would advance them centuries. His voice grew passionate. We were punished for having compassion. I refuse to let that punishment change who we are. Helen was silent for a long moment, weighing the implications. What Daniel proposed was not just defiance. It was revolution. It would paint a target on humanity's back that could never be erased. But as she looked at the determination in his eyes, she saw the same fire that had driven humans from caves to cities, from sailing ships to starships, from one small planet to dreams of infinity. There is a system called Viridian, 70 light-years from here, Helen said slowly. Intelligence reports indicate a species called the Ashran are facing extinction from an asteroid impact predicted to occur in 8 months. The Council has observed them for 60 years, documenting every stage of their civilization. They have declared the Ashran's potential extinction a natural event not to be interfered with. She met Daniel's gaze. 400 million sentient beings will die, and the Council will do nothing but take notes. Daniel felt something crystallize inside him, a decision that had been forming for 5 years finally taking solid shape. Then we will be their first stop. Not as conquerors. Not as saviors arriving to demand gratitude. We arrive as neighbors offering help, nothing more. 3 weeks later, the Defiance dropped out of fold space at the edge of the Viridian system, accompanied by 6 support vessels carrying engineers, geologists, and enough kinetic impactors to shatter an asteroid into harmless debris. The Ashran detected them immediately, their primitive radio telescopes lighting up with alarm as unknown ships appeared in their sky. Captain Olivia Reeves, promoted from her diplomatic service to command the Defiance, opened a communication channel. She was nervous, more nervous than she had been facing the Council 5 years ago. This mattered more. This was not about politics or laws. This was about proving that humanity's choice to help others was not a weakness but their greatest strength. People of Ashran, she transmitted in their mathematical language, painstakingly decoded from their broadcasts. We are travelers from a distant world called Earth. We have observed that your planet faces a threat from the sky. We have the ability to remove this threat. We ask nothing in return except the chance to meet you, to learn from you, to perhaps become friends. The choice is yours. We will not act without your permission. The response took 6 hours. Olivia spent that time imagining every possible outcome. Rejection. Fear. Hostility. When the Ashran reply finally came, transmitted from their capital city of crystalline towers, it was a single word that needed no translation: please. The operation took 12 days. Human engineers worked alongside Ashran scientists, sharing calculations and theories. The kinetic impactors were positioned with mathematical precision, their trajectories calculated by both human and Ashran computers working in harmony. When the asteroid broke apart, its fragments burning harmlessly in Viridian's atmosphere like a meteor shower, the Ashran did not see invaders or superior beings. They saw partners. They saw equals who had chosen to extend a hand across the void. Olivia stood on the surface of Ashran's primary moon, wearing an environmental suit as she watched the debris trails paint silver lines across the alien sky. Beside her, an Ashran scientist named Kelrick clicked his mandibles in what she had learned was their expression of profound joy. "You saved us," Kelrick said through the translator. "The Council ships have been watching our system for 3 generations. We sent them messages begging for help. They never responded. We thought the universe was empty of kindness." His compound eyes shimmered with moisture. "You proved us wrong. We know what it is like to feel alone," Olivia replied softly. "We will not let others suffer that feeling if we can prevent it." News of the Viridian intervention spread through human space like wildfire. It was no longer a secret project hidden in underground facilities. It became a movement. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, offering their skills as doctors, engineers, teachers, negotiators. The shipyards worked around the clock, building not warships but vessels designed for exploration, rescue, and first contact. Humanity had been given a choice between accepting isolation or embracing their nature, and they chose defiance wrapped in compassion. Over the following months, human ships appeared in 17 different systems. They delivered medical supplies to the plague-stricken Morvain. They taught sustainable energy techniques to the Quillen whose world was dying from industrial pollution. They mediated a peace treaty between the warring Hector clans, not through force but through patient dialogue and creative compromise. Each intervention was careful, respectful, designed to empower rather than control. And the Council noticed. The emergency session was called on a star date that would be remembered in human history books for generations. Every elder race sent their highest representatives. The Vrwen matriarch coiled on her heated platform, her scales glowing with barely contained rage. The Stellan Primarch projected waves of cold disapproval. The Kellas swirled with colors that translated to outrage and disbelief. Humanity has violated the terms of their banishment, the Vrwen matriarch declared, her voice shaking the crystal chambers. They have developed prohibited technology. They have interfered with protected species. They have spread across council space like a virus, contaminating the natural order we have maintained for 12,000 years. The council chamber filled with calls for action. Some demanded immediate military response. Others called for complete quarantine, suggesting they encase the entire Sol system in an impenetrable energy barrier. A few, a very few, spoke with uncertainty, noting that none of the human interventions had resulted in harm and that several civilizations were thriving because of them. It does not matter if their intentions are good, the Stellan Primarch intoned, its ancient consciousness weighing every word. The law exists for a reason. Civilizations must rise and fall by their own merit. To interfere is to play God, and we abandoned such arrogance millennia ago when it nearly destroyed the galaxy. But in the quiet spaces between words, in the careful avoidance of certain topics, a truth began to emerge that none of the elder races wanted to acknowledge. In 6 months, humanity had achieved what the Council had failed to do in 12,000 years. They had built bridges instead of walls. They had chosen compassion over dogma. Species that had been studied and documented and allowed to suffer were now flourishing, not because they had been controlled but because they had been helped. The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous. For the first time in Council history, the elder races were divided. The resolution to take military action against humanity passed by the narrowest possible margin, and even then, the language was carefully vague, speaking of containment rather than destruction.